Time for happy hour, guys. It's Friday. It's the beginning of the weekend. Yours truly is back in the saddle today. I missed you guys yesterday. Let's all put something in our glass.
Every day can be a better day despite the challenge. All you gotta do is leave it better than you found it. It's gonna get difficult to stand, but hold your balance. I just say whatever, cause there is no way you're bound. Everyone falls down sometimes.
Y'all know that I've been leaning on this song all throughout quarantine.
It's okay.
It's my go-to, especially on a Friday.
It's okay.
Always makes me feel good.
It's okay.
Here it comes.
Feeling good, like I should. When in the
All right,
club
guys.
around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed,
Excited.
never stressed.
Jump in with you
Got
guys.
the sunshine on my
Brian, you're
Sunday
asking
best. Some days you wake
The
up and
earbuds are
nothing
on.
works. You feel
I need to make sure that
surrounded.
you guys can
Gotta
hear me,
give
so
your feet some
there's
gravity
some
to get
issue
you
with the
grounded.
earbuds.
Keep good things inside your ears just like the waves and sound it. And just say whatever, cause there is no way you're grounded. Everyone
Who is here? Linda, I feel like you're always first in the comments. Good to see you from
but
San
you just
Antonio.
gotta know it.
Of course, Jeffrey and Brian are here, and
It's
Dell is
okay.
here. Ooh, Ken, howdy from San Antonio. Howdy from William Chris tonight.
It's
Which
okay.
time you having? High state?
Feeling good,
And what year?
like I should.
I am enjoying
When in
this
the
season, so
club
we'll
around
talk
the
about that today.
neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed.
Never stress, guys.
Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. They feeling good.
I'm not trying to react to this song, guys, but I am having a good time. It's Friday, guys. Friday, July 17th, and I hope that you're ready to party. Since the weekend is here, the week is over, we're going to keep talking about Chenin Blanc today, which I'm stoked about. So, it looks like the song's over. I think that's a good time for me to kick things off. Drop into the comments. I want to know where you are. I want to know what you're drinking. If you're a first timer, throw 3 stars up there. We want to shout you out. But you guys are saying that you can't hear me. So let me switch from my earphones to my computer because I can do that. So let's go to MacBook microphone, MacBook speakers, and hopefully you guys can hear me really well now. Cool thing is I can switch up the technology. Sorry about that, but hopefully you're hearing me just fine now. If you guys can give me like a thumbs up or we got you now in the comments. Last thing I want on a Friday when we're ready to party is issues with the audio. So love. Happy hour. Missed you guys yesterday. Hopefully you had fun with Evan and with Savannah. But let's jump in. Let's talk about the William Chris wine of the day, guys. I'm having some Cinsault. So let's talk about that first. Cinsault, or if you want to be very French about it, Cinsault. Okay, La Pradera Vineyards and 2018 vintage. This is actually my first time having this wine. Obviously, we've had Cinsauts in the past, Lost Straw Cinsault, but this is the 18, guys. This is what I'm stoked about because it's a new release and it's tasting really fresh. And if you remember, we've talked about Cinsault before. We even had the relief wine that we did with Cinsault. It is a great summer wine. So if you're not drinking Cinsault in some respect, you should be. Okay, guys, very normal here. Very fresh red fruits, a little bit of acidity, not much tannin at all. I am loving this right now. It's got like tart cherry, but also almost like the smokiness. Like there's this undercurrent of a little bit of smokiness in this wine. That actually is pretty typical for Cinsault. Cheers, guys. With this wine, I'm going to think about, well, I should tell you first, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Cinsault's got a classic pairing in the Somm world. So, you know, there are a lot of wines out there, and it's like, well, if you're eating this, then you got to drink this. Or if you're drinking this, you got to eat this. These classic pairings are tried and true over many years. And the one for Cinsault is always snails. So I don't know anybody out there who likes escargot. I am one of those people. I love escargot. I think for me, you want that like classic garlic butter drenched snail, and you just got to get in there and just really enjoy it. And honestly, I was a little bit afraid the first time I did it, but having it in France, I'm hooked now, especially with good garlic butter. But Cinsault's classic pairing, escargot. Now, I know not a lot of us are like prepping snails at home. So like, let's talk about another option while you're at home. And that is going to be here in Texas, especially carnitas tacos with a little spritz of lime. This is going to cut through the fattiness of the pork because it's got good acidity, not a lot of tannin. And that heavy kind of protein will help lift the fresh fruit. Cheeseburger on the grill as well. I'm for sure this, like, especially with the smokiness that this brings, that smokiness on the grill is going to help bring out the smokiness in the wine. And you're drinking it on a chill when you're working over the grill. So light, fresh red wines with high acid, fresh fruit notes. It's going to go great with just a regular old cheeseburger, right? And when I say regular old, do it right. Add some bacon on there. Make sure you like grill the buns with a little bit of butter. Get the little char grill marks on it. I could go for a really good cheeseburger on the grill right now. Okay. Guys, Cinsaults this is a good question. So I'm going to actually address this right here. So Pinot Noir is widely considered to be like the lightest of red wines. And so Cinsault, I think, depending on how it's made, can sometimes be lighter in body and character than Pinot Noir. But this is also dependent on like how ripe was that vintage. How long did the producer let it hang on the vine? Did they do a lot of pump overs during the wine production? And to get extra extraction from the grapes, did they press it extra hard? So, you know, it just really depends on how the winemaker treated the grape. I would call them, if you're doing 100% so and 100% Pinot Noir, they're going to be pretty close in the same world. They're both lighter reds. They're both high in acid. I'd say Pinot Noir tends to have a little bit more tannin and usually is treated to more new oak. So it just depends. That's all I'm going to say. I would say like very similar. If you're a Pinot Noir fan, you're going to be a Cinsault fan. There's no story behind the sunglasses, guys. You know, it's my way of hiding these crazy bags. No, I'm just kidding. I just like to wear it. I feel like it like brings the vibe to happy hour because normally I'm outside. It's been like 100 degrees, so I brought happy hour in. But let's jump into the wine nerd section today. I am stoked to talk to you about Chenin Blanc because it's another one of those grapes that, for whatever reason, myself included, we kind of forget about. It is great for the summer. It's really refreshing, high in acid. And so today we're going to talk about all things Chenin Blanc. So I want to know all your questions about Chenin Blanc that you've ever wondered about. And maybe you've never been thinking about Chenin Blanc. And that's a problem that we're going to fix today, because Chenin Blanc is another one of those fresh white wines that are perfect for hot weather. And we're in the middle of the summer. And so you need to be drinking some Chenin Blanc. Okay. So, you know, I've got three things for you, but first let's all take a drink. Cheers, guys. So fresh, so good. Okay. Thing one you need to know about Chenin Blanc. And, you know, it's usually the colored pencil moment because I'm going to bring out some maps. I love showing you guys like where we're talking about because, you know, if you're like me, maybe you didn't have the best geography teachers, and it's good to remember. So let me zoom out here. We're going to talk about the Loire Valley because that is where Chenin Blanc is originally from. So we're going to be in France. So you'll notice here, this is where all the colored world is, but I want to kind of scroll up a little bit so you can see like where in France we are. So let me zoom in on this little French map down here at the bottom. So you notice this area up here, it's actually pretty far north in France, meaning it's a much cooler climate, okay? Now, the real home is in this Anjou area in green here, okay? We're going to talk about a few of these areas, but generally speaking, I want you to know that it is originally from the Loire Valley of France, but high quality versions are also being made in South Africa and in California. Okay. The records from the 1400s show mentions of Chenin Blanc in the Loire Valley near Anjou. Okay, let's also talk about a few others. So, you know, a lot of times French wines, they don't say the name of the grape on the label. So it's important for you to know some of these other names that are on this map, so you know that you're getting Chenin Blanc. So the first one we just talked about is Anjou. So if you see a white wine from Anjou, Anjou, you're getting Chenin Blanc. A few others, Sauvigners, which you see here, the big S word, Sauvigners. There's also Vouvray, which is over here a little bit to the right. Vouvray is a famous Chenin Blanc. Saumur, here down at the bottom, this S word, Saumur, is also Chenin Blanc. And I'm going to leave you with that. Those are some good ones that you're going to see in the market. Anjou, Sauvignier, Vouvray, and Saumur, or Saumur. Again, butchering the French language. Those are a good 4 French appellations for you to remember if you want to go look for kind of what is the heartland of Chenin Blanc, the origins of it. Now, it's also pretty cool that in the 1600s, you had the guy who's widely considered as the Afrikaans, the Dutch part of South Africa. He's kind of like the father of the colonialists who came through. He brought Chenin Blanc vines with him from France to South Africa. And from about the 1600s until the early 1900s, they mainly used Chenin Blanc to produce the brandy in South Africa. And the reason it's good for brandy is because it's got a really neutral character and it's got really high acid. Okay, neutral character and high acid. And so in South Africa for a very, very long time, they just wanted to produce a lot of brandy. It was also really nice. They realized it was an easy crop. Chenin Blanc is a super grower. It's a vigorous vine. And they were like, man, this stuff grows like a weed. We can grow a lot of it. We can make money off of this crop. And so they grew a ton of it in South Africa, which meant in the early 1900s, when they started to try and produce wine from it, it was more of a bulk wine. Okay. But in the last 20 years or so, there's been a little bit of a renaissance in South Africa. Some will probably stretch that to probably 30 years. The last 30 years or so, they've really concentrated on reducing the yields, ripping up some of the vines so that it wasn't overcropped. If it gets overcropped, a lot of that acid that helps make the wine so great that we love about Chenin Blanc, it really goes away. So you don't want to overcrop it. So they've brought the crop production down. They've started to pay attention to a lot of the old vines that exist in South Africa. And they've started to produce these premium Chenin Blancs. And so while you should go seek out French versions of this to understand where it came from, South Africa has really come on the scene with some of the best Chenin Blancs in the world. Cool. All right. That's thing one. Let's all take a drink. Happy Friday, guys. Time to kick off the weekend. Before we go on to thing two, we've got some good questions here. Let's hop in. Angela's asking, is Chenin Blanc similar to Sauvignon Blanc? Yes, in that it is crisp and clean and fresh. And I think that's how we a lot of times think about Sauv Blanc. I'd say the biggest difference here is Sauvignon Blanc typically has this like green note, grassy. Some people talk about it like a jalapeno or bell pepper kind of note. I think of it more of like a grassy note. So there's always this like green character to Sauvignon Blanc for me that usually Chenin Blanc, it doesn't really have that. If anything, it has almost like a green apple, a pear, a little bit of a lemon. And that's actually thing two. So we're going to talk about that. And so I want to make sure that if you're, it's a great way to think like this. I love Angela's question because we always want to think like, if I like this style of wine, what's something easy for me to hop to? And when you think about Sauvignon Blanc, you're usually drinking that because it is a refreshing, crisp white wine. And another refreshing, crisp white wine is Chenin Blanc. So I really do think this is a good kind of partner to think about, especially if you're a typical Sauvignon Blanc drinker. Cool. Let's move on to thing two, and I'll come back to even more questions. Guys, if you have questions as they come up, post them in the comments, and I'll try and include them. And it looks like Alan was asking a similar question about Sauvignon Blanc. Less green note, more neutral fruit, more apple. If it gets really ripe, and this is actually what we're going to talk about, the styles here, Sauvignon Blanc almost always has that green. the big thing about Chenin is when it gets really ripe, you get a lot of sun and warmer climate, it can get kind of tropical in notes. Sometimes you'll get into the like pineapple and mango world. But again, this is all dependent on where it grows, how the farmer farms it, how long they let it sit on the vine, what the like sunlight aspect, elevation, excuse me, I'm saying too many words here. The incline aspect, in other words, like how directly are the sun rays hitting the vineyard and the grapes? And then like, is it south facing or north facing? So in South Africa, the equator is north. So north facing vineyards are going to get more sunlight. In the northern hemisphere, like in the Loire Valley where they grow it, they want usually south facing vineyards so they can get that afternoon sun because the equator is south of them. But it's important to know that you can get all different styles of Chenin Blanc wines. And in France especially, so when you go seek it out and you want to buy some, you got to pay attention to the words on the bottle. And they've actually started to do a pretty good job of letting you know on the label if it's a dry Chenin Blanc or if it's a dessert wine Chenin Blanc. And so you just really got to look at the label, look at the back. They usually give you some key terms. Sec is one of them. S-E-C, sec, means dry in French. So if you see sec, you know that it is a dry Chenin Blanc from France. For example, it would say Vouvray, the region, sec. Vouvray sec would be a white wine from Vouvray, which is Chenin Blanc, that's made dry. Now, if it says demi-sec, that means partly dry. In other words, it's going to have some sugar in it, and you should expect that. Now, we've talked about this apple, pear, lemon. There's also this kind of, a lot of people think a wet wool kind of aroma. And for me especially, I get this like flinty minerality in good Chenin Blanc. And I think that that is like one of the things that sets it apart for me. I'm actually a huge Chenin Blanc fan. It's probably up there with Riesling as probably my top white wine grapes of the world for me and my palate. So I always love this wet rock minerality that always comes through, along with those tart fruit notes. I'm not a huge fan when it starts to get kind of tropical, but some folks love that. Now, I do want to let you know that the dessert wines are from Botrytis. We've talked about this Noble Rot before, and I wanted to show you a picture. So let me pull that up. We've talked about Noble Rot before. We did that when we talked about Riesling earlier this week. And so I wanted to remind you about what this looks like. Everybody hopefully can see this well on their screen. Noble Rot is Chenin Blanc is very susceptible to Noble Rot, especially in France in the Loire Valley, where they get a lot of morning fog. That morning fog promotes this fungus, which is what Botrytis is. It's a fungus that will infect the clusters. And it's actually, as you'll notice, it infects individual berries. And we talked about this in the Riesling Riesling episode, that the individual berries get infected. The Botrytis Noble Rot will raisinate or dry out the individual grapes and concentrate the flavors, concentrate the sugars, concentrate the acidity, and makes really phenomenal dessert wines. And so Chenin Blanc, especially the ones from France, are highly susceptible to this Noble Rot and therefore are used to make really amazing Chenin Blanc dessert wines. Okay, now that doesn't mean the majority are sweet, because they're not. The majority are still dry, but you can get some amazing, extremely age-worthy dessert wines from Chenin Blanc because of the Botrytis infected grapes. Now, you'll notice, because not all the grapes get infected, some of those look like healthy white grapes. The Botrytis part will be cut out from the cluster, and they'll make a separate dessert wine. And then those fresh grapes that haven't been infected can be used in the regular dry Chenin Blanc. Really cool that they do this, but it also is really labor intensive to have to go through each cluster like that. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so we're talking about a bunch of different styles, and you got some good questions here. So let's pull up one of them. Is Chenin Blanc oak or no oak? So most of the time, they're going to try and keep true to that like fresher style, which means not a lot of oak. Now, there are particular regions that are known for doing neutral oak. And then in South Africa, they've started to separate what most people have identified as like that bulk wine, entry level, not as good Chenin Blanc from their premium wines by using some new oak on their Chenin Blanc. So a lot of the high quality producers in South Africa, that's actually something that we're starting to notice on the premium South African Chenin Blancs, is a use of some new oak. Now, neutral oak is fairly regularly used in some parts of the Loire Valley, but not because they want to give the wine any kind of oak flavor. So they're using all neutral. And that's really just to add weight and texture to the wine by allowing the oxygen to come in contact with it. So great question, Alan. I really appreciate that. Chris is asking, is this like a Vinho Verde? Vinho Verde is very sharp, very acidic, and doesn't, for me, most of the time have as much character as Chenin Blanc. Vinho Verde, for me, while similar in this world of like Sauvignon, I would say Sauvignon Blanc and Vinho Verde are a little more closely connected, just because Vinho Verde tends to have a lot of green character and is really like almost like lime juice. I always think about Vinho Verde as like a lemon lime refreshing juice, and sometimes a little bit spritzy. They'll leave a little bit of spritz in a Vinho Verde, and Vinho Verde's great and perfect. I mean, perfect for the summer. So like, don't discount that, and it's still in this acidic world. So, you know, Ken's asking, are we drinking rotten wine? The wine isn't rotten, but the grapes that were used to make the wine are rotten in a good way. That's why it's called the noble rot. It's the same noble rot that shows up to help produce Sauterne and Tokay and some other amazing great dessert wines of the world that were back in their day considered the wines of kings. So there's a reason the kings, the royalty, sent out for these specific wines. So yes, it is noble rot, Ken. We are drinking noble rot based wine. So I love this. Jennifer's saying she loves Puy Fumé from the Loire Valley. It is not made with Chenin Blanc. This is a good question, guys. So I could actually pull back up that map. So I'm loving that we're going here. It's a little bit off topic, but we're in the Loire Valley. We're talking about crisp wines here, and Puy Fumé is a really great one. So I'm actually going to come inland way over here. Let's see. I believe, or I'm gotta zoom out, guys. I'm way too close to find my Puy Fumé. Where are we? Here we are. It's in this little purple area. Now I gotta zoom back in, D. Right here. Everybody see Puy Fumé? It's right next to Sancerre. So if you probably have heard of Sancerre before. Sancerre and Puy Fumé are both made from the Sauvignon Blanc grape. Okay. Good question to identify here. It is crisp and clean, and it is a great wine from France, but it is made from Sauvignon Blanc, not from Chenin Blanc. Great question. And again, like, these are great associations to make of like, man, I love Sauv Blanc. That means I can drink Sancerre and Puy Fumé because those are the French regions that grow it. And then I can hop over to something like Chenin Blanc if I want to change it up. And maybe I, want to try something different, something else on the menu, get a little more like apple, pear, lemon minerality going rather than some of the green notes that you get from those wines typically. Cool. Loving this. Let's all take a drink. I got one more thing for you. You're not going to want to miss this because it's about sparkling wine. So I'm going to pour a little bit more of my Cinsault. Get a little French pronunciation going for Friday. Happy hour, guys. I love hanging out and nerding out with you guys. I always have the best questions. Thing number 3, Chenin Blanc is used to make delicious sparkling wines. And I'm going to give you the names of them so you can go find them. Like, feeling good. I want to play that song again. Okay, thing number 3, guys. Chenin Blanc is used to make delicious sparkling wines. The first one I want you to know about is called Cremant. That sounded terrible. Cremant de Loire. Cremant de Loire, or the Cremant of the Loire Valley. Cremant is the French name for sparkling wines made in the traditional method, not in Champagne. Okay, so same production method as in Champagne, but somewhere else in France. So Cremant, if you see it, you know immediately traditional method sparkling. And that's some expensive production that takes a lot of time and effort. So you know it's going to be good quality. So Cremant is traditional method sparkling. And then typically in France, they'll tell you where it's from. So Cremant de Loire means it is the Cremant sparkling wine made from the Loire Valley. Cool. And most of the time they're using Chenin Blanc, sometimes 100%, but it can be blended with other grapes. So you need to know Cremant de Loire, Chenin Blanc sparkling wine. It is delicious. And it comes in all of the different sweetness levels. So you can have very dry, and that's probably more typical, is to have just a few grams of sugar, which, because the Chenin Blanc grape is so high in acid, is actually needed just for it to feel balanced. Otherwise, it's like razor sharp in your mouth, really bitter and not fun. It's kind of like sometimes if you suck on a lemon and it makes your face like do all kinds of weird things. You need that just a touch of residual sugar or dosage where they add it at the end in order to make it a balanced wine. And so it's not necessarily sweet just because there's a few grams of residual sugar in there. It actually makes it balanced. The second one I need you to know about is Cremant du Limoux, which Limoux is actually the heart and soul, the home, the original home of sparkling wine. So guys, if you really want to get nerdy, you should go Google Limoux. It was the, make sure I get this right, the monks from way back in the day in Limoux who originally did the like very first sparkling wines in the world. So pretty stinking cool. They grow Chardonnay there as well. And so the Cremant du Limoux can be Chenin Blanc, Chardonnay, or a combination of the two. But if you want to try some delicious sparkling Chenin Blanc, which I highly recommend, and because it's high in acid, makes really good sparkling wine, check out Cremant de Loire and Cremant de Limoux. Okay, I would say that you'll find the Cremant de Loire in the US much more frequently than you will the Limoux wines. They just don't show up here as much. People don't know it as well, even though it was the birthplace of sparkling wine. Cool. So I will say this also, if you just see the word Cremant period, know that you're getting traditional method sparkling from France. And depending on what region it's from, you're going to have different grapes, but it's always the grapes that are well known in that region. So I always tell people, you know, take a look at the back of the label. A lot of times they're getting better about putting the grapes on there, or just Google it. But look out for Cremant wines if you like bubbles like me. It usually affords you a budget wine if you want sparkling that's made in the same method as champagne. Cool. Now, guys, I always promise you a little bit of bonus content and some producers to go look out for in these different categories that I'm teaching you about. Cheers one more time. Let's talk about some producers that I'm excited about, specifically in California, because guys, back in the day, and somewhat still today, there's a lot of bulk wine being made in California from Chenin Blanc. But there are a couple of producers that I do want to bring to your attention. And one of those is Dirty and Rowdy. We love Dirty and Rowdy. They make a lot of Mourvèdre wines, which makes sense that like we would see eye to eye with them. Dirty and Rowdy is doing some really, really cool stuff. Definitely go check out their winemaker is a favorite of mine. I got to meet him at a wine festival last year and doing some really cool stuff with Mourvèdre, but works with some old vine Chenin Blanc in California. So check out Dirty and Rowdy. The second one is a group of like pretty young winemakers, and they're called Maître de Chai. And they're making both a still Chenin Blanc from some old vines, and they're making a sparkling Chenin Blanc. So if you want to try some domestic versions, I will also give you one of my favorite French producers. So let me throw this in the comments. French Chenin Blanc is Huet. Huet is like classic producer of French Chenin Blanc from the Vouvray region. So go find some Huet. If you can find some with some age, this is the other thing to know about Chenin Blanc because of its acidity. And then if you find the sweet versions, the dessert wine versions, they'll have both acid and sugar, which help preserve the wine over the long term. And when they get older, they start to take on, those dessert wines take on these honeyed and nutty notes that are just otherworldly. And so if you get the chance to find dessert wines with age, like from Vouvray, from the Loire Valley, it's a real treat. You should check it out. But look for Dirty and Rowdy, Maitre de Chez from California. Look out for Huet. There are also some great South African producers out there. Again, if it's making it to the States in like the $20 range from South Africa, you know it's going to be quality. Just because the lower end stuff at like $10 range from South Africa is still just going to be that bulk wine. So get around the $20, I would say like $18 to $20 range with South Africa, and you're going to be good to go with producers. I could spend a lot of time sitting here telling you producer this, producer that, but I gave you a few to go find out. Chenin Blanc, guys, should be your next crisp, refreshing white of the summer. It should be your next sparkling. It should be your next dessert wine. So like you have all these categories, and that's what makes, at the end of the day, if you don't remember anything else, Chenin Blanc is a very versatile grape and can be made in a lot of different styles, and you should be drinking more of it, especially during the summer, especially the dry and sparkling versions, because they're crisp and acidic and refreshing. So go find some Chenin Blanc, have it with chicken. I would say that'd be the number one. Have it with fish, especially the dry versions. You can do it with oysters if you're an oyster fan out there. And the dessert wine versions you can have by themselves. I would do it with maybe some cheesecake. You're going to get if you do New York style cheesecake, right? Rich and creamy and fatty. Oh, so good. I love New York style cheesecake. And you pair it with Vouvray, like the dessert wine Vouvrays. The acid in the dessert wine, because Chenin Blanc is so acidic, will cut through the creaminess. And then you'll get this honey and nut note, honey and nuts to add on top of that, almost like vanilla creaminess of the cream cheese. Next level good, guys. If you do that, email me and let me know how it was, because, man, that sounded good right now, and I might need to make that happen in my life. Okay, guys, I've had a blast. It's good to be back teaching and nerding out again with all of you. What a way to kick off the weekend. Cheers to all of you. I've got these three things. I need you to stick around. We've got some important notes. You know that tomorrow is our virtual tasting with Chris and Catherine. Guys, first time ever we have done an all high estate virtual tasting. You are not going to want to miss this, especially because this is the launch. This is the launch of the high estate Malbec Rosé from 2019. This is a lot of people's favorite, guys, rosé of the year. It's usually mine. It was aged in concrete. It is delicious. You can still get this virtual tasting pack if you don't already have it. Order it at that link in the comments. Go pick it up at Curbside, which leads me to thing number 2. Curbside is available during all regular business hours. Okay, guys? So go out there, smile through your mask, say hi to folks, pick up some delicious wine. It's a great drive out to the hill country. It really just, for me, it's a good relaxing way to get out of the house. Weather's beautiful, super sunny. So go see Curbside, folks. They'll hook you up with wine. Last and certainly not least, I will be here on Monday, after the weekend, guys. And after you go hang out with Chris and Catherine for the virtual tasting tomorrow, I'll be back on Monday. Guys, remember, Mondays are Mourvèdre Mondays, so I'm going to be drinking 2017 La Straw Mourvèdre. You should join me. Get some of that wine at Curbside. Have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday. Cheers to all of you. I do a lot of cheers to guys. I missed you yesterday. Cheers to all of you for giving me a space to hang out. You guys ask such great questions. I love getting to teach. So this is a joy of mine. I'm just thankful for all of you. So cheers to all of you. Have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday. Bye-bye.